I think it's much more likely somewhere between 9 and 16, those 4 or 5 teams I'm looking at, and I go, you're not all going to pass on him. Yeah. And certainly not. If he gets all the way to 16 for the Cardinals and they could have him and Paris Johnson as their 2 tackles, they're living. They are absolutely living. So, no, it's just a fantastic player.
Guys, just walk with me for a second here. Paris Johnson Jr. on the left. Armand Membou on the right. For the next 10 plus years. I'm telling you, whoever quarterback is, they're going to have a fucking great time with those 2 as the bookend tackles for the next decade. If you're not a fan of Armand Membou, I'm hoping by the end of this video, you become a big fan of Armand Membou, and I'm hoping you can realize that not only is he well worth the 16th overall pick, but he's worth moving up for in the draft to go and get. Now, with that being said, let's jump right into Armand Membou and why he's my number 1 prospect, why he's my favorite player. Formerly it was Josh Simmons. Now it's Armand Membou, why he's my favorite player in the draft. Now, he's 6'4", which is, I guess, it's not the greatest height if you're strictly going off athletic scoring, but 6'4", I don't have an issue with that. He's 332 pounds, and his arm length came in at 33.5 inches at the combine, whereas it was 34 inches at the Senior Bowl. And there's been quite a few inaccurate measurements between the 2. So, again, something I like to say is if you like a prospect, he's definitely going to have 34-inch arms. If you don't, he's probably going to have 33.5. Not that it matters, because that's sort of the threshold you want for your tackles in the league. So he definitely ticks the box from a measurements point of view. He was also invited to the Senior Bowl where he got that 34-inch measurement, but he pulled out due to a stomach flu or a stomach bug. So he ended up coming in, doing his measurements, and then leaving Mobile shortly after. Just quickly touching on some other sort of composites of his relative athletic score. You can see elite in his vertical, elite in his broad, and elite in his 40-yard dash. You can see his 10-yard split there, 1.74, another great score. I believe he had the best times for a few of these different workouts and also the 40-yard dash at the combine. So again, ticks all the boxes you want athletically as well, when you can see his relative athletic score of 9.90, and I'll show you another relative athletic score for Membou a bit later on in the video, but for now we're just looking at the tackle RAS. So again, ticks all the boxes you want from an athletic standpoint. In terms of his age, he played the season at 20 years old. He's going to be 21 years old on draft night as a rookie. So his rookie year is going to be a 21-year-old rookie, which it's basically ideal. I don't think it gets any younger than that in terms of a starting rookie. You might have a few that slip in there at the age of 20, but or they're 20 on draft night, but then they're 21 for the regular season. But in terms of age, he's still so young. He can still get so much better in terms of what he's already put on tape. So that's something to look forward to. He's still young, like I said, and he's a 3-year starter in the SEC for Missouri. So he's played both left and right tackle in 2022. He played right tackle in 2023. And then this final season in 2024, he also played right tackle. Now, a few of the offensive linemen in this draft have not gone up against a resume that Armand Membou has gone up against. He is battle tested. He's played against the best competition this year. You know, you just look at the names he's gone up against. Jalen Walker, Michael Williams out of Georgia. Both players out of Georgia. Both players projected to be first round picks. Some even getting top 10 hype. Guys like Jalen Walker are like number 3 on Dane Brugler's big board. He's number 3, I think, on Daniel Jeremiah's big board, or at least top 5 from memory. And then you've got Michael Williams, who's everyone's projecting as this sort of top 10, top 15 athletic freak. He didn't test that well, but that's sort of the perception both these players have. Then you've got James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee, who again is projected to be a first-round pick. You've got Shamar Stewart, this athletic freak. I think he was the number 1 testing player in his position out of those RAS scores. And he's also projected to be a top 10, top 15 pick. Nick Skelton, however you pronounce it, another guy who at Purdue last year was projected to be the number 1 or number 2 edge coming into the season. Well, he was. He's fallen off a little bit just because of, I think, how Texas A&M want their D-line to play. He's fallen off, but again, Membou played against Nick Scorton. Donovan Ezeraku, who again is projected to be a mid to late round, first round pick. And then you've got Jack Sawyer as well, who probably is not going to go in the first round, but he's been mocked in the first round before. He's definitely been mocked on day 2 and early day 2 as well. So again, these are players we've seen in mock drafts, not only in the first round, but mock drafts for the Cardinals as well. And guess what? Armand Membou, 2.7% pressure rate against those players. Let me repeat that for you guys. 2.7% pressure rate against all those edge rushers I've just listed. That is absolutely elite. He is battle tested. He's gone up against the best. And there's names that I haven't mentioned, such as Dylan Stewart out of South Carolina, who Brett Coleman, I'll try to find the tweet and put in the video for you guys, but Brett Coleman basically said this guy would be starting for the Arizona Cardinals as a freshman coming out of South Carolina. Like he would, given all our injuries, given our D-line, he said this player would be starting for the Arizona Cardinals. Again, another player that Armand Membou went against this year and had a solid outing. So again, 2.7% pressure rate. That's absolutely insane. And then if we keep looking a bit deeper into his stats for 2024, 0 sacks allowed. Yep, in the SEC, 0 sacks allowed. 0 hits allowed in 2024 as well. He had 8 pressures allowed. Some metrics have it as 9 pressures, others have it as 8, but either way, we'll go top end. We'll go 9 pressures allowed. The most was 2 in one game, so 2 pressures in one game. 8 hurries allowed on the season as well. Again, the most allowed in one game was 2 hurries. So 0 sacks, 0 hits, minimal pressures, minimal hurries. Going up against the best competition. Again, his pressure rate 2.7% against those top guys who majority are going to go in round 1. Just phenomenal. Just absolutely phenomenal. And then you look at his grading. I would have his grading sort of put there from a run blocking perspective, from a pass blocking perspective, and also just the overall grade as well. But per PFF, he was their highest graded right tackle in the country this year. Again, if you look at his penalties as well, he allowed 4 penalties, 1 of which was declined, so technically 3 penalties, which is half of what Josh Simmons allowed his last full season, who he allowed 8 penalties and more the year prior. And then you're looking at a guy like Will Campbell, who's currently projected to be the first offensive lineman off the board. He allowed 9 penalties last year, so again, less than half of the amount of penalties, a third basically of the amount of penalties allowed from Armand Membou in comparison to Will Campbell. Now, another reason why Armand Membou is such a valuable pick and would be such a valuable pick is he can play guard. Would I personally play him as guard? No, I would kick Jonah Williams inside. I think that would help with not only keeping Jonah a bit more healthy, because he has gotten injured almost every single season. You're paying him a lot of money as well, so I would personally just kick Jonah Williams inside. I think, he's a guy that people have said in the past they would love to see him at guard, so quite frankly, I would not move Armand Membou inside, but I'm just saying there is a possibility, if they see fit, they could put him inside for 1 year and then kick him back out to tackle, much like Ohio State did with Paris Johnson Jr. With that being said, the possibility of him playing guard, I'll throw up his RAS score for guard as well, and you can see absolutely incredible. Ticks all the boxes you want from a relative athletic score as a guard, so no issues there. Like I said, the worst case scenario you're getting if you take Membou, say you put him out at right tackle, for some reason he fails hypothetically, which I don't think he will. Worst case scenario, you've got an elite guard. I don't see any negatives in picking up Armand Membou. Personally, I think another benefit of picking him up, which I think you'll have to move up to get him. I definitely don't think he's going to be there at 16. We'll go into that a bit later on in the video. But another reason that taking Armand Membou would be a sort of another plus is you steal him from the 49ers. The 49ers need a right tackle. Membou would be perfect in their system. They did play a lot of zone at Missouri, but Membou can do both. But that's just another positive. You steal him from the 49ers, and then you've got to watch 49er fans. They've got to watch Armand Membou be your right side protector for the next 10 plus years. And if you don't think 49ers fans want Armand Membou, take a look at this.
after pick 11, but you can find a defensive tackle. You can find some situational edge rushers. You can find corners. You can find safeties. You can find some wide receivers. It's been so hard for the 49ers to even find an offensive tackle they like enough to draft as an offensive tackle. And so you almost can't pass on Membou if he's there for you at pick 11.
If I still haven't convinced you, please go and take a look at our current depth on our offensive line. Now, you might be saying, oh, we're set at right tackle, we're good. Quite frankly, I think our interior depth is absolutely terrible. Like, fair enough, if the Cardinals brass is high on Isaiah Adams, that's fine. I've got no issues against seeing him develop. He's an older prospect, so the fact that we're sort of sitting here and thinking, oh, well, they're high on him, give him a bit more time to develop. Well, like I said, he's a bit of an older prospect. He's played guard, he's played tackle, so we'll see how he goes. I'm not overly convinced on that pick. I'm not also overly convinced on Evan Brown. Like, he was solid last year, but for me personally, Evan Brown's not something you write home about. He's been given a new deal, but that's not a deal I'm using as a preventative from taking a player like Armand Membou or even improving my offensive line in general. I like to take, when it comes to offensive line, you put your best 5 out there. Now, what that looks like for the Cardinals with Armand Membou involved is Armand Membou is 1,000% going to be starting in that best 5. Where he starts, that's a different question, but he's 1,000% in that best 5. And just quickly, Jonah Williams, Kelvin Beachum, both free agents after this year. Do you think the 1 game sample space of Christian Jones is enough to sort of convince you or tick that box that right tackle is set for the future? For me personally, it's not. And when I'm going into the draft, I'm not drafting for 1 year's worth of play or positional fixing. I'm looking at it from a long-term point of view. And quite frankly, Armand Membou, for me, he's my top player in this draft. If he's available from 7 to 10, I'm going up and I'm getting him, and he's going to be my right tackle for the next 10 years. Just quickly, I'll also just touch on some other things I like about Armand Membou. Like, I like his flexibility. I like his coordination. For me, I think he's got the balance you look for when you're looking for a franchise tackle. And again, some knocks on him have been that he doesn't have the grit. He's not a finisher, but I quite frankly think he's got that aggression. He's got that tone-setting mentality. I think he's got the movement skills as well to fit any sort of scheme and definitely fit what we're doing here in Arizona. And just quickly as well, if you haven't, for whatever reason, checked out my guy AVB's video on, he did a great breakdown on Armand Membou versus Josh Simmons. I'll put that video in the description. I'll put a screenshot up on the screen as well. Make sure you go check that out. Make sure you go support him as well. Like, a great breakdown from a guy who's actually played the position, so he gives a bit more detail than I can in terms of the technique and sort of what goes into offensive line play. So definitely go check that one out if you haven't already. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, he's still very young. He still has so much more room to grow, so much more room to get better, despite the sort of elite sort of tape he's put out this last season at Missouri. And I'll just throw out another little stat for you guys. I love my stats. I hope you enjoy them as much as I do. But since 2003, there have been 4 offensive linemen that have come into the combine at 315 pounds or more and ran a sub 5-second 40 and had a 30-inch vertical. Those 4 players: Trent Williams, Tristan Wirfs, Will Campbell, and Armand Membou. So I'll let you think about that for a second in terms of, again, his athletic scoring, comparing him to players like Wirfs and Trent Williams. These are the best guys in the business. Now, I'm not saying he's going to come in as a rookie and be Trent Williams. I'm not saying that. I'm just using it as an example to see how athletically gifted this guy is. And he's still, like I said, he's so young. And like I said, he's agile, he's athletic, he can work in both zone and gap schemes. I'm not worried about that at all. I know a lot of people are saying he'd be perfect for a zone scheme, a Shanahan scheme, but quite frankly, I'm jumping the 49ers and I'm going to go get myself my right tackle. Now, if you look at him on the consensus big board, he's currently number 8 on the consensus, where he's being mocked anywhere between 4 to New England and as far back as about 11 or 12 to the Niners and Cowboys. Like I said, I do not anticipate him being there at all at 16. I know people have him as a top 15 lock, top 20 lock. I think he's a top 10 lock, top 12 lock max if you're pushing it, which is why I think we're going to have to go up and get him. I personally am not against that at all. But if you're looking at sort of the odds for who's going to be the first tackle taken, Will Campbell is currently odds-on favorite to go number 1 overall. Well, not number 1 overall, but the first tackle to be taken. Sorry, not tackle, but offensive lineman, however you view him. So again, and also Will Campbell was invited to the draft. They're being a lot more selective with who they're inviting to the draft. So the fact that Will Campbell's been invited might sort of hint towards the fact that he will be that first offensive lineman taken. And I can just see a world where, you've got the Jacksonville Jaguars where their interior defensive line depth is so terrible and so shot that, given the fact that they've also re-upped majority of their offensive line and their entire starting 5 offensive line is under contract, I just don't see them passing on Mason Graham. And Ashton Genty's been heavily linked with the Raiders with Pete Carroll there. So I think, just looking at it, I don't think he's gone in the top 6 picks. I think he gets to 7 where the Jets are, and then it becomes whether or not the Jets want to trade back. They're in a rebuild. They've got a new front office there, new coaching staff. So ideally, there'd be a trade destination to go up to get Membou. But again, anywhere from 7 to 10, I can see that's where his pick range is going to be. If you want Armand Membou, that's where you're going to have to go to get him. And I've got a few different trade charts we're going to quickly go over to sort of see what the value would be to go up, to trade up and basically get Armand Membou. The first chart we're going to have a look at is the Jimmy Johnson trade chart, which is probably the most common one used. You can see the pick 16 is worth 1,000 points, and to get anywhere between 7 to 10, we've got to make up between 300 and 500 points. Now, going up the Jets, you're probably looking at giving them, I guess, a round 2 pick based off this chart, and maybe a round 4 pick as well. That might be considered a little bit too much, a little bit too rich. I don't think that's the price you're going to pay, especially in this draft class where there's no quarterback tax, there's not too many blue chip players. I don't think you're going to have to give up this much compensation to go up, but this is sort of what the Jimmy Johnson chart is looking at in terms of trading up to that 7th pick. If you're looking at trading up to 10, it's probably not as bad. You're probably looking at like a 3rd and a 4th maybe, or like, again, just your 1st and 2nd, and then getting something back in return, like a later round pick, like a 4th round pick or a 3rd round pick, for example. The next chart I'm going to look at is the Fitzgerald-Spielberger chart, which is created by Brad Spielberger, formerly of PFF. He's now like a player agent. He's the agent for CJ West coming out of this draft as well. And then you've got Jason Fitzgerald, who runs the Over the Cap website. Now, the value they've placed on the 16th overall pick is 1595, and to get sort of up into that 7th overall pick, you're roughly looking at making up about 400 points of value. Now, what that looks like going off this chart is simply sending over a 4th round pick, so 115 going to the Jets, and then you're moving up sort of 9 spots, which might be a little bit of an underpay, I would say personally. But again, this draft is not considered a quarterback heavy draft. There's no quarterback tax. So if you're going off this chart that they've created, you're looking at sending a 4th round pick over. Now, the way they've calculated their sort of chart is they've factored in research going into previous drafts, and they've then created their own sort of chart. So that's how they've come up with these sort of values for the picks. The next chart we're going to look at is called the Harvard Value Chart. Again, I think this was looking at a range of different drafts for about, I think, 15 to 20 years, and then they've sort of created a chart based on the trades that were made throughout that time. This is a less common trade chart, but again, looking at this one, this is sort of similar to the Fitzgerald-Spielberger chart, where we're looking at giving them 115, which is our 4th round pick, pick 16, which is our 1st round pick, to go up into that 7 to 10 range. Again, I think this is a little bit unders, and you're looking at probably getting a 7th back based on this sort of chart. But again, I think this is a little bit under what we're expecting to give up to go up that high. So I'm sort of going to weigh it up and put it sort of somewhere in the middle. And then finally, the last chart I'm going to look at is the Rich Hill trade chart. Now, this chart is a bit more close to the first sort of chart I showed you, being the Jimmy Johnson chart, where we're looking at sort of giving up either a 1st and a 2nd round pick to make up to that 426 value, so 305 plus 124, which is slightly over, so you might get like a late round pick back from the Jets. Again, I'm going off the Jets just because I think that's where he could go. They could move Elijah Vera Tucker out to right tackle and then fix their guard problem. through a trade back or in a later round. Obviously, the examples I'm giving out, if you're going later down to sort of 10 where the Bears are, it's obviously going to cost a bit less. So going off this trade chart, we're looking at sending probably a 3rd and a 5th round pick, similar to how we sent those picks over to Oakland to move up for Josh Rosen. Jesus Christ, PTSD. Anyway, this player, unlike Josh Rosen, will be well worth those picks. Looking at sort of an in-between between all 4 trade charts, you're probably looking at giving up a 3rd round pick and probably like a late round pick swap of some sort to go up to that range to get him. Now, I'll ask you guys a question. You can put it in the comments. You can even answer it for yourself. But if you're being offered to trade back and you're being given a 4th round pick in this class, are you going to opt to trade back, pick up that extra 4th round pick, have 7 picks, whatever? Or are you willing to part ways with, say, 1 or 2 picks, move up, and get your franchise right tackle for the next 10 years? I can understand why people would be against moving up because sort of the draft, this draft, the players from, say, 20 to 70 might all be very, very close in ranking. So having that extra pick you might see as a bit of a value, an extra dart throw. I know people have that opinion. For me personally, I don't care about trading back, getting an extra 4th round pick. We see a lot of mock drafts where we're getting a 2nd round pick to trade back. It's not happening, guys. We're not getting a 2nd to trade back, and especially not from a division rival. I've seen a lot of those. It's not happening. If you're trading back, you're probably trading back to 20 to 20 sort of 5 range. You're probably going to get a 4th or a 3rd round pick. Do you value that additional 3rd or 4th round pick more than giving up, say, a 3rd and a 5th round pick to go up and get a bookend tackle? I'm not going to answer the question. I'll leave it to you to think about that. But for me, this is my number 1 player. I would personally go up. I would trade up for this player. And for me, I'm not even looking back. I'm not even thinking twice. I love this player so much. I'm hoping I've shone a bit more of a light on this player, how good he was last year, how good he's going to continue to be given his age, given his work ethic, given his athletic score. When you combine everything, this is the type of player you want. And again, if we're looking at the almighty chart, shout out to Joe, shout out to the Cardinal rule. If we're going off the chart, he's created based on Monty Ossenfort's picks from New England, and I think Tennessee as well, and also the Cardinals. It would fall in line that an offensive tackle is the pick. And I'm fully aware Monty likes to trade back. He likes to trade back, pick up picks. But I'll leave you with this as the final sort of... I've probably rambled on for about 20 minutes here, but I love this player. So the last 2 draft classes, there's been, I think, 21 picks. I think it was 13 and 9, so I could be wrong there, but I'm 22 picks, 21 picks. Anyway, do you think we're in a position... the last time I checked, we currently had the most amount of signed players to an active roster per over the cap. Are we in a position to, again, load up on, say, 10, keep trading back, load up on 10 picks? I personally don't think we are. I can understand the logic of trading back, getting more picks, getting more sort of throws at the dartboard to stick on these picks. But quite frankly, I think we need to sort of definitely sort out the offensive line for the future. And I think in a draft where there's limited blue chip high-end talent, giving away a 3rd and like a late day 3 pick, for me personally, that's really nothing when you know what you're getting in a player, you know what you're getting as a starter for 10 years. If he fails for some reason, I don't think he will at right tackle. You've got an elite guard. I think he's going to be a phenomenal right tackle at the next level. And for me, he's my number 1 player, which is why I'm doing the first video on him. And quite frankly, I will be pushing the train to trade up for Membou. Now, I know for a fact we haven't met with Membou at any sort of level, whether that's at the Senior Bowl. I don't think we've met with him. I don't think we've met with him at the Combine. I don't think we've had a top 30 visit with him as I'm currently recording this. And I'm not sure if they've had their Pro Day yet, but I don't think we've met with him at the Pro Day if that's happened either. So whether or not he's the pick, whether or not we've met with him or not, maybe they're trying to keep it low-key. But I'm really hoping we move up and take this play. If you stuck around for this long, it's probably been 20 minutes, but if you've stuck around for this long, if you enjoy the content, there's plenty more coming. There's a few more players I want to put videos out on and sort of clear some narratives around some players like Will Johnson. I think the narratives on him have gotten out of hand. So Again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.
We love that last 40.
Maybe